Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's 1 Million by 1 Million Strategy Roundtable for Entrepreneurs. 1M by 1M, as you know, is the first and only global virtual accelerator in the world. Our mission is to help 1 million entrepreneurs reach $1 million and beyond in annual revenue. And in support of that mission, we've been doing these free mentoring roundtables for a long time, over a decade. It started in the fall of 2008 as an experiment and then blossomed into a regular fixture in the entrepreneurship ecosystem of the world. This is the 432nd episode of the 1M1M strategy roundtables, public roundtables. And we have as many and more private roundtables that happen for our members only, behind the scenes that the broader world doesn't get to see. So that's the platform. The event is being recorded. Every single roundtable recording is available on our YouTube channel, 1M1M Roundtables. You can go check that out. Twitter, if you're live tweeting the show today, use hashtag 1M1M, please. And you can follow us at 1M by1M and at Stramana, which are our two Twitter channels, and we publish a lot of interesting content through them. And these are the call-in instructions. This is a roundtable, not a broadcast, so we would like you to participate as much as you wish to. You can call in and discuss when we open up the lines for Q&A, but in the meantime, set your public chat to send to all participants and dialogue as much as you would like to. Whatever thoughts come to your mind, questions, etc., by all means, use the public chat to engage. We're going to start today's session with a conversation with Swapna Gupta, Senior Investment Manager of Qualcomm Ventures. Swapna, welcome to the show.
Hi, Samana. Happy to be here.
So, Swapna, let's start by some introduction to Qualcomm Ventures, and this is Qualcomm Ventures India, by the way, so the focus of today's conversation is going to be Qualcomm's investments in India. Swapna, let's have you introduce the firm to our audience first.
Sure. So as you're aware, Qualcomm Ventures is a global billion-dollar fund. Our part of Qualcomm Ventures India, which is a $150 million dedicated fund for India, investing across sectors. We have been in India for the last 10 years. We have a healthy portfolio of about 25 plus companies, and we have been doing consumer, we have been doing enterprise, we have been doing hardware, and exciting times which is in the ecosystem. In terms of investment thesis, I think we are very unique in a way that we derive a lot of value out of the mothership, which is Qualcomm Incorporated, and we believe in what they believe in. So they are believing in creating world-changing transformation internally for the world to see, whereas we also want to do that externally by aiding the startup ecosystem to actually create world-changing technologies and transformation. So that's our thesis, and that's our vision in India as well.
Okay. So it's not necessarily Qualcomm-specific strategic investments. It's a much broader investment thesis, yeah?
That's true, and I think a lot of startups and entrepreneurs don't understand this, but there's a marked difference between being a corporate VC and being a corporate development team. So when we say we've got a corporate VC, we are as financial investors, anybody out there. We do not invest to acquire. We invest to make financial returns.
Okay. And your sole limited partner still is Qualcomm, right?
That's the fun part, that we don't need to raise capital.
You will need to raise, you don't have to raise capital, right? Yeah, okay. So let's double-click down on stage. What stage is of interest to you? Is it seed? Well, let me first actually set the stage and ask the question in the context of the world we are seeing. The early stage ecosystem has really segmented at this point. So we have obviously friends and family, and then we have pre-seed, seed, post-seed, pre-series A, small series A, traditional larger series A. There's like a whole lot of stuff going on in what used to be just called early stage seed investment. How do you play? What's your sweet spot in this continuum?
I think we continue to be what we were 10 years ago. So we would like to play anywhere between Series A, Series B, and very, very early opportunistic Series C, which means our check sizes are anywhere between 1 to 5 million. And depending on the stage and the stage we want to get in, we play our bets. We try to shy away from the seed game because we would like the fraud to settle before Series A sort of comes out of that. But we do some seed investments, but majority of our portfolio, if I have to say, is loaded towards Series A and Series B.
Okay. And how do you define Series A? What is a check size for a Series A?
I think the definitions have been changing over the years. I think now a typical Series A that you would look would have a check size of anywhere between $3 to $5 million. We would typically like to do like a $1 to $2 investment in that sort, $2 million investment in that sort of Series A.
Okay. And what do you need to see in terms of validation to write a 1 to 3 million investment check? Because, I mean, 1 to 3 million is still a relatively small Series A, and in some cases, 1 million is considered a seed still. So obviously, definitions is one thing, but the check size is another. And really what matters for our audience is what do you want to see before you're willing to write a $1 million, $2 million, $3 million check in terms of validation?
That's right. That's a fair question. I think it has two different things to it because we look across the gamut of offerings, which is we look at consumer startups, we look at enterprise startups and hardware startups. Maybe I'll pick up enterprise startups to set the flavor. If it's an enterprise startup, typically you would expect by the time a founder comes to at a Series A stage, he has found his product market fit, which is he's not still struggling with the product to figure out who is going to be his first 5 or 10 customers, right? So that is where we would like to see him, that he knows his first 5 to 10 customers. He has done that, all that stays on himself, which means he doesn't have a large team doing it, but he's built a company to that scale where he's ready to get to the next level, and that's where he needs our capital.
And that's comfortable for you?
That's very comfortable, yes.
Okay. Now, are you investing in media as well?
Media, yes, but it is slightly different twist when we look at media. I think for us, we are looking at technology which is changing. The media is changing as we speak, right? It's no more
media is changing, absolutely.
You're talking about virtual reality, you're talking about augmented reality, you are talking about immersive experiences. So that's where we are playing more bets versus traditional content media. Is how I would like to put it.
Okay, got it. And e-commerce, is that also something you're still playing in?
So that's interesting, and I think we should look at very specifically to India market. I think India is a very different geography, which is 1.1 billion population, a new wave of smartphones. Because of us, thanks to us and Reliance, people are adopting digital. So there's no way to shy away from it. But of course, we are not, since we don't make like 20 bets a year, we possibly do 5 to 6 bets a year. Even if we make that one e-commerce bet, if you bucket it such, it will be very thought through and has very, very great underlying pieces as to why it works for Qualcomm Ventures and why it makes financial returns. So in short, I could tell you that there's no fear of missing out in an organization. I mean, there could be different curves and different flavors of the season, but we can shy away if we need to.
Mm-hmm. So when you look at the Indian market today, where do you think are the big opportunities? If e-commerce is kind of off the table, the content side of media is kind of off the table. Of course, B2B SaaS, there's a lot going on, and people are going after enterprise software, which is kind of India's sweetest sweet spot, right? And that's something that will continue to be in favor, I think, for the foreseeable future. You talked about a bit of media technology, virtual reality, and so forth, as long as it's a technology game. But I don't think India has any particular strength or unfair advantage when it comes to that kind of technology or any experience as such. That experience lies elsewhere. So where, besides B2B SaaS, where else do you see India's big opportunity?
Actually, multiple areas. So I personally am of the belief that you will see great and large healthcare companies come out of India. And it's simply because of the reason that unlike US, India is not regulated, right? Which means you have options to experiment, you have options to figure out a forgiving market to work with you.
Yeah.
So I think that's something which has not been experimented so far, and it has its own infrastructure issues. Healthcare needs a lot of data and bandwidth. I think some of those infrastructure issues are being solved now. So I'm sure you're going to see great healthcare companies come out of India. I also think that you're seeing a lot of work happen around connected world, which a lot of people talk in terms of Internet of Things. So we are seeing a lot of connectivity happening on manufacturing setup. We are seeing a lot of that at industrial level. We are seeing also in very, very niche areas. You'll be surprised that people are doing it for chemical plants, people are doing it for printing pressery, and these are individual companies going after niche IoT plays where they can easily create $100 million businesses just catering to that one segment, because India traditionally has not seen technology transform these sectors, which are manufacturing and industrial sectors.
Yeah. But those, I would say, are kind of B2B companies, right? They're, whether it's IoT or analytics, IoT companies typically end up being analytics companies because of all the data that spews out of these sensors. They end up providing not just the IoT functionality, but also the data analytics functionality. So these are going to take the shape and form of B2B SaaS companies eventually, no?
Right. I think the third area which I would possibly like to place a bet, and I'm still looking for that, if you know somebody, do tell me, is I feel in consumer electronics we have an edge. We have been using Apples and Xiaomis of the world, but we still have not been able to create a homegrown brand as such. And there is no reason why we should not. So, of course, we are going to see some of those happen in terms of technological products. It's happening in consumer brands with a non-technology, but I do see that happening in technology as well.
Yeah, so technology, consumer products, consumer electronics has not really happened in India. It's all been from elsewhere. And well, China is very strong, and Chinese products come into India fairly aggressively, right?
Right.
So the competitive landscape is very tricky. Okay. So you said you've invested in about 25 companies. Why don't we talk about a few case studies of what you have invested in, and take us through the journey of, when did you see these companies? What did they have? What caught your attention to convince you that this is something that you want to invest in?
Sure. So I will pick maybe 2 or 3 different sectors and give you flavor of consumer enterprise growth. So I'll pick the first investment that I did when I moved to Qualcomm Ventures. And this is a company which is very unique in the sense that it is an enterprise story. However, it's an enterprise story for India alone. So we all hear about stories of enterprise that we need to build for the global markets from India. This is one company which actually started to believe that it can build for India from India. So what they essentially did is they picked a very specific problem, which is employee transportation problem in India. They said, look, the second largest component of any large corporate P&L after payrolls is employee transport. And it's very unique to India because India is the only country possibly where employers are actually transporting their employees back and forth from home. So is there a way to cut down that cost for a corporate? And they build a great software platform which could actually optimize the efficiencies of the cab, to bring down the dead miles, and they could save at least 30% of cost to corporates. And they became a household name at every corporate. And meanwhile, today they have 100+ customers. So those are the kind of stories that can be built out of India if you choose a very specific India problem. And you don't have to detect tests for doing that.
And what did they have when they came to you to seek investment? What did they have?
I think they had 4 customers maybe, yeah. But I think what caught our attention was that those customers were not Indian companies, but actually large corporates willing to sandbox them. So when they came to us, these founders were ex-Microsoft, and they actually convinced Microsoft to buy their product. And Microsoft is not an easy nut to crack. And that convinces that if you can do it for a large corporate like Microsoft, which has its policies and procedures, you can easily do it for hundreds and thousands others.
Great. All right. Okay, so that's one. Let's do another example.
The other, which I just did about 6 to 8 months back, is a company called Shadowfax. It's a very interesting story because increasingly India is becoming an instant gratification economy. And traditionally, how logistics has been built in India, it has been built on 2 to 3 day redemption, right? Now, if you need everything to be done in next 60 to 90 minutes, you have to build a new sort of infrastructure, and that was non-existent in India. So these guys have built a strong network of delivery personnel, and they actually survived the aftermath of, high valuation and multiple funded companies to actually come out strong. And they chose a very, very cost-efficient approach, saying that I am going to be the third party, which is going to cater to all these instant gratification companies, which is Amazon or Swiggy, or in grocery, maybe Big Baskets. I will pick all these 3 or 4 niches, and I will cater to all of them, and I will be their de facto provider because it's a curve I can see going up, and I need to ride on that curve.
So you are saying that in this case, Amazon and Swiggy and Big Basket and comparable companies are willing to outsource their last mile delivery to this company?
And there's a reason too, right? If I am a Swiggy, my peak times could be possibly early morning or afternoon or late night, but there is a lull period. What do I do with my fleet during that time? So what this company essentially, and same goes for Amazon, you take most of the deliveries when you're in office. So there is a lull period during the rest of the day. Same goes for grocery. Most of the deliveries happen either early morning or late night. So there's a lull. And you don't want to build a network for that. So there's this third party who's actually able to optimize all these peak times across different categories.
So they staff up the peak periods and the lull period they're outsourcing. Interesting.
Yeah, and that's good business for everyone to work with.
Okay. So switching the question a little bit, if you look at the last, say, year, like the 2018 deal flow, how many deals do you look at in a year, and what are the trends in that deal flow?
That number is unbelievable. I think as a group, as a team, we may be possibly looking at between, so we have a 3-member India team. Between us, I think we at least end up looking at 200 plus deals a year. I think the interesting trends, I think there's always flavor of the season. So if food delivery is the norm, you will see a lot of food delivery companies. If social commerce is the norm, you will see a lot of them. But I think if I have to look at last 6 to 9 months trends, I think we have seen a lot of healthcare plays. We've seen a lot of education plays because I think some of the infrastructure barriers have been taken care of. We are able to build these kind of organizations. We are also seeing a lot of momentum on electric vehicles, surprisingly. So I think US has a Tesla, China has a lot of other players, but India still hasn't seen an electric vehicle wave.
Okay. I think Swapna's line just dropped. Okay, got it.
I can hear you.
So,
I can see you. Yeah.
We can see you again. Your video just went off for a moment, but that's okay. So now electric vehicle plays are very, very capital-intensive companies. Do you have stomach for this kind of intensely capital-intensive companies?
We do have stomach, and I think you're right that they're capital-intensive. So you will realize that most of these vehicle companies are actually looking at existing OEMs to fund them, which is the existing OEMs are this large behemoths who cannot move as fast as a startup, yet would not want to be caught unaware. So you would expect a Mahindra or a Tata or a Hero to actually take exposure in these companies and grow along with them. So I think that has made capital easier for some of these guys.
Interesting. Okay. And what do you think of the unicorn mania that we have experienced over the last few years? It started in Silicon Valley, I would say, in the 2013 13, 14 time frame, and it went to India and swept over India. And now I think India has stabilized a little bit. How do you read this? How do you analyze this?
That's good for ecosystem. I think when I say that, it means that the more stories that you hear of large companies being built, more aspirational entrepreneurs come forward to build more. So which means today the kind of crop of entrepreneurs I see willing to take risks versus 10 years is very different.
Sure.
We actually have aspirational young guys who are willing to give it all to build that next unicorn. So it's good for the ecosystem. I do feel that the challenge that though comes with it is that sometimes you are running too fast, and running too fast, sometimes you don't fix a lot of problems along the way, and that can become a major issue when you grow to a larger size. So I think it's important as you're raising capital for these companies also to be cognizant that a tag is okay, but you need to grow into that tag. You need to be build a kind of machinery that deserves that sort of tag. I think that is what we could educate the ecosystem a bit more about. We would go great as building unicorns.
Interesting. I'll give you a couple of thoughts on how I read the Indian unicorn mania. India has had traditionally a good cost-efficient dynamic. And this unicorn mania has actually disrupted that dynamic. And in my opinion, actually that dynamic was healthy, because I think you build better companies if you bootstrap first and raise money later and have kind of a good, attention towards unit economics and stuff like that. So if you invest ahead of figuring out what your unit economics are, what your customer acquisition cost is, how can you profitably build and scale a business, and you just have a lot of play money without figuring things out, that doesn't build very healthy companies. And I think there's a phenomenon, a corollary to the unicorn mania is the death by overfunding phenomenon, which has happened intensely. Actually, we've covered quite a few companies that are good examples of this death by overfunding phenomenon. So in a way, I kind of hoped that India would play to its strength of being able to do things frugally, and then once they've figured out the scaling mathematics, then infuse capital to scale. But I don't think it has gone quite that way, although it's shifting back a little bit. So to your point that it creates good stories and a lot of attraction to entrepreneurship is very well taken, but it's also creating a lot of misconception. Entrepreneurs think that they can raise huge amounts of money without proving out their thesis, without proving out the beginnings of a thesis. And I don't think that's necessarily a healthy phenomenon. I don't think that's going to create a lot of robust companies.
That's a fair argument. I think the only counter argument, and we continue to have this debate in the ecosystem, I think for some companies it's a necessary evil. Because when you're in a scenario where you're in a flat world, right? You're not fighting local incumbents. You're fighting global giants with cash flows reach. And if you have to fight that battle and you want to create homegrown large companies versus get a foreign incumbent to come and take the market, you would rather fight that battle out. And if you need to fight that battle, you need to have all the ammunition in place. So I take your argument. I think it's not necessary for every segment, but in some segments it's just necessary evil that you need to fight with all the ammunition.
Yes, and I think Flipkart is a good case in point, where I think if they wanted to take on Amazon, they needed the capital and so forth to build that kind of muscle. Absolutely. So I would say Flipkart, Paytm, they fall in a slightly different category. But there are companies that have gone after markets, and I don't want to name names, but I think that have questionable thesis. All right. Well,
I think it's a boon and bane of the business.
Yeah. Well, I think what it does is it confuses entrepreneurs. Right now in India, there are tens of thousands of entrepreneurs who are starting up companies, and they're starting with the belief that entrepreneurship equals financing. Well, as you have articulated, and as investor after investor articulates on these forums for us, that they're not going to invest in concepts. You have to get your concept to a product market fit, customers, etc. And you said you need 5 to 10 customers. Other people need more customers to invest. So that period of working through the process of 18, 24, sometimes 36 months of bootstrap business building is an expectation that needs to be set in the minds of early entrepreneurs. And if we go with this entrepreneurship equals financing mindset, they never get that mindset. And they're basically bouncing around looking for capital before putting the cart before the horse. It's a big problem.
That's true. That's true. And I think a lot of people are doing education around that. I mean, we always educate entrepreneurs when they come to us that, look, maybe you don't even need funding. You can grow with the pace you are growing because this doesn't need funding, right? So I think it's also our job, which I think ecosystem continues to do, but you will have anomalies, which is okay.
Yeah. All right, very good. Good to get your viewpoint on what Qualcomm Ventures is doing. We are going to switch to the entrepreneur pitch section of the presentation today. I'm going to give you a little bit of expectation setting before we kick that in gear. Remember, this is a working session. We are on your side. We have no other agenda but to help you accelerate your journey. So you don't need to be defensive. You don't need to be nervous. Just talk about what you are working on, what you are struggling with, what kind of questions are coming to your mind, and we'll try our best to answer those questions. Now, it's possible that I will tell you something, you will disagree with my feedback. That's okay. It's your venture. You're going to do exactly what you want to do with your venture, and the consequences are going to be based on those choices. So all we say is that listen to what we are saying, because this is feedback based on huge amounts of pattern matching. We have worked with many tens of thousands of companies at this point, and there's a tremendous amount of institutional knowledge here that you are drawing from. So listen, think, consider the possibilities, and so forth. The one thing that you will have to take into account is not all businesses can raise venture capital. And raising venture capital doesn't necessarily guarantee success, as we just talked about. And the first part of this is that venture capitalists are looking to go from $0 to $100 million in revenue between 5 to 7 years. And that is a hyper-growth scenario. Very few companies fit the hyper-growth mode. Most companies don't have what it takes to grow at that kind of pace. So you have to consider whether your company has that kind of capacity or not, and if it doesn't, then you're not going to be able to convince a venture capitalist to invest money in your company. The best way to convince investors is by showing unit economics, showing proof points, showing velocity in your business in a bootstrap mode or in a small amounts of capital mode before you are ready to raise large amounts of capital. So keep that in mind. It's going to be very, very difficult to raise, out of the gate huge amounts of money. And by huge amounts, I mean even, $3 to $5 million without much, to show for it is not going to be possible. That is just the way the market operates. So don't come with false expectations. Rohith Pallerla, you are going first. Zodhya is the company. Please come talk about what you're doing.
Yeah, hi Swapna. How are you?
Good. And you?
Yeah, I'm doing great.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we are Zodhya. We are a startup making commercial spaces profitable. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine. Please keep going.
So yeah, when you hear a word called commercial space, so what gets into your mind?
Commercial space, warehouse space, commercial industrial space, even commercial real estate?
Yes. So we also set out that way and see like what exactly goes into it. Well, because as you said, different businesses operate out of that. Warehouses or hotels or any other things like hospitals or anything. So for such businesses, there are two things. So one is the revenue, the other is the operating expenses in order to become profitable. For revenue, if they have a right marketing budget and right strategy, they can get into it. But now the operational efficiency has become the norm. So that's how we want to see, like, how can we contribute to the bottom line to improve their operational efficiency. So that's how we set out. So we are a startup founded by 3 people, myself, Aditya, and Sharat. So we are graduated from IIT Madras, and we were selected out of 2,000 startups as well to incubate at T-Hub. So when we looked into what these spaces go under, so for a space of just 10,000 square feet, they spend about 12 lakh rupees per year just on energy bills. And air conditioning, they consume about 60% of the bill, and you cannot compromise on that as well. Because you'll have to provide comfort to your consumers, to your employees, whoever is operating over there. And these human presence sensors or automatic control, they don't work as well because they have to run about 14 hours a day, 16 hours a day. And BMS systems, they can't fix the problem because they just report it, and reporting doesn't equal savings, nothing contributing to their bottom line.
Right.
So yeah. So what did we do? So we found out a solution where we could save about 15 to 20% on the energy bills. The next slide, please. So not only that, so the tech, what it does is it allows you to operate your spaces, maybe 10 spaces or 20 spaces you operate. So anywhere, in any part of the world, you can operate it right from your desktop. See what's happening and what's all going over there. And it fits for most of the commercial spaces, about 5,000 square feet to 50,000 square feet. And this tech, it consists of 2 parts. One is the hardware, which we use it to optimize your air conditioning, because that's the 60% operating expense, right? And the software, it's a web portal, like just as you log in, you will be able to know like what's all is happening. So coming to the next slide, I can show that better. So yeah, for the hardware, it's a patented technology which actually controls the power input given to the air conditioning, and it's already approved by ISO 9001 and CE. And there is something called CII Green Eco label, which is in process as well. It is taking time because of their procedures, but yeah, we have applied for that. And yeah, coming to the software, the next slide, yeah. So yeah, if I'll have to tell more about the hardware, it's attached to the your air conditioning externally, and it reduces your AC consumption by about 25%. Or in terms of monetary, if I'll have to say, it saves you about 48,000 to 50,000 Indian rupees per year per device. So the software is nothing but a web portal where you can see like what exactly is happening at your space. You can see the screenshot over there. So it's saying about the load trend as well as the consumption trend. And apart from that, the data analytics behind, they help you detect repairs as well as power shortages. And you can set threshold as well. So we help them set the threshold as well depending on the space and appliances they use. So they set those thresholds. And once it crosses the thresholds or near the threshold, they get an alert. So they can alert on the wastage happening, or they can reduce on the consumption as well, and get to know what the operating times is, what efficiency the space is operating, be it an outlet or a hospital.
Okay.
So that's how they. And this is a case study of our customer, or one of our customers. It's a space, it's an office, which is about 12,000 square feet, and they have 60 employees working in that. And they have a bill of about 12 lakh rupees per year, about 95,000 to 1 lakh rupees per month in electricity bills. So we implemented our tech over there, and we reduced the bills by about 1.8 lakhs per year, or the bill reduced from 1 lakh rupees per month to 85,000 rupees per month. And they recently he gave us a review as well. So he was in Bangalore, and this is in Chennai actually. This office is in Chennai. So he was able to see a power shortage happening because of some disturbance in the capacitor area, and he was able to see right on the desktop, contact his electrician and fix that without causing any problem to the office operating. So it's helping them that way, and they are paying us about 5,000 rupees per month. on that, and the cost which we have put at upfront was about 35,000 rupees.
Wait a second.
I'll explain the.
Yeah, explain the business model.
Yeah. So I'll get into that. So the market size here is about USD $5 billion, and the spaces, the commercial real estate space is going at about 10 to 12% CAGR. And there are about 5.2 million buildings in India which are commercial, and out of that 2.5 million buildings are serviceable in our market. And the recent E-Com Act and the GST Act, this is aiding to grow the retail spaces in different, not only in the Tier 1 cities, but Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities as well.
This is the Indian market, the TAM that you're presenting here is Indian market?
Yes.
Okay. And all right, let's keep going, then I'll come back to this.
So so if a customer has to adopt our solution, he can choose any one of the pricing plans. One is the fixed monthly payment, so which is based on the savings and analytics offer. So in the recent example which I have shared, they save about 10 to 15,000 rupees per month. So they are paying us 5,000 rupees per month. So that's the fixed monthly payment, or they can go for the one-time payment if they are not happy, if they don't want to enter into this monthly agreement. There are a few companies who don't generally want to go for the one-time for the monthly thing, so they go for the one-time. So we have put for them. So in the one-time thing, they get a guarantee of 2 years.
One-time lifetime or one time a year?
They pay only for the upfront investment.
I see.
From their side. Yeah, one-time payment from their side. This is a monthly payment. You can say it as a rental thing. So it goes on. So first we enter into an MOU of about 3 years, and after that, if they are still interested, that still goes on. Okay. So if any time they want to drop back also, they'll have to inform us 1 month before, or notice 1 month before, and they can drop from the plan as well.
Rohith, can you explain the COGS number that you presented here? What is this COGS 35K?
Yes. So they have adopted this monthly plan, right?
Yeah.
So they are paying about 5,000 rupees per month. That's the cost of goods sold from our side, which has come up to 35,000 rupees upfront from our side. Because they have adopted it monthly, so we'll have to put that before. So that's the upfront cost for us. So that will get covered about 7 months.
Your cash flow requirement is a problem.
Yes. So in order to tackle that, we have come up with advance payment as well, which is about 4 months currently. We started with 6 months, but the negotiations go to 4 months of advance payment. But yeah, there is a little cash crunch over there, which we could manage for each stage.
You know, one thing I would say right away, just by listening to this part of your presentation, is that you should not do deals where you have to invest so far ahead of your revenues, because cash flow wise it's going to be very complicated. You should get, if you're charging, so I assume the 5K number is a discounted number. You're going to sell at 10, 15K per month, right?
Yes, definitely. So that was our first customer. We couldn't charge more.
Yeah, if you're going to sell at 10K per month, then you should get 4 months in advance and then go to monthly payments. If you're going to sell at 15K per month, then you should ask for 3 months advance payment and then go to the monthly charges. You have to somehow cover the costs of the COGS upfront. Otherwise, the business model is going to be very unattractive from a scalability point of view.
Yeah, definitely. So that was our first customer, so we couldn't charge more over there, but that's the plan actually.
Okay.
So in order to get into the market, we are getting in touch with the decision makers in the corporate areas. And also we are trying to partner with industrial associations like CBRE, CII, which gives us a good image over there. And also with the lead connectors, influential people who have about 100 or 200 outlets in the French deals, right? So we are trying to partner with them. And going into the future market, we have this data of what exactly is happening in that space. So with that, we will be able to know like what exactly is required for that to make them not only energy efficient but energy sufficient as well. So connect them to the right solar suppliers and solar suppliers to their right customers. And we can serve for spaces about 50,000 square feet plus as well once we get the tech right. And well, yeah, we can always forecast these electricity bills as well once we have this data. So that's how we are looking at the future market.
Okay.
So the next slide, please. So yeah, till now we have currently one paying client who is paying on a monthly basis, and we have 5 clients who have where we have completed POCs. So those include TVS, ICICI, Xiaomi, Big C, and there are 2 other local chains where we operate in Hyderabad. So till now the revenue is about 30,000. So 35,000, so including this month, I will have to say. And lifetime value per customer, I would say 25 lakhs, because each customer they have on average about 10 spaces. So for each space, it's about 2.5 lakhs they pay on a lifetime on an average. So that's how we calculate it. And the sales cycle, it's about 3 months currently, because these are B2B, and it is taking a bit of time since we are in an early stage to convince them.
That's actually 3 months is not bad for the stage you're at. Now, what is the how long would a device last? See, these hardware pieces that you're installing on ACs, what is the life of that?
It's about 5 years.
5 years. So your lifetime value, you're looking at a 5-year window, and then you have to renegotiate the deal and sell another set of devices.
Yes. What usually happens is these spaces, they vacate about 3 years or 4 years on an average. But yeah, we'll have to replace while they are still continuing in that space.
Okay.
And
Swapna,
we want to improve the tech as well.
Or comments? 1 second. Swapna, would you like to comment on this?
Yeah, sure. So I think my limited comment here is that we're increasingly seeing more of such models where people are deploying CapEx upfront and getting monetized over a period of time. I think it is important for you boys to actually run your model to see that whether it's commensurate, and your model should work in a way. In most cases, I've seen that your CapEx should repay in next 8 to 10 months. I don't know if you have done those sort of models that the CapEx that you're deploying is able to repay you back in 8 to 10 months. And if it does, then sometimes these models do work, but you also need to ensure that you have a working capital line in place to actually address the asset, because the moment you get a new client, you will need to have capital to buy those assets to actually put them in. So it becomes a chicken and an egg after a while.
Yes.
I think you would build a much robust business if you do not have this kind of upfront investment requirements in your deal negotiations. I would not do deals where you have to make so much upfront investment before the cash comes in. It's going to be very difficult to scale with this kind of a working capital model.
Yeah, so we have those 2 models, right? One is the monthly payment, which most of our customers are preferring, which doesn't involve any capex over there. And we do provide the capex model as well, the one-time payment which I have mentioned, if they are strictly want to go for that.
For your sake, if you're doing the monthly subscription fee, you need a chunk of monthly subscription ahead so that you can finance the cost of the device. Otherwise, this is going to be unscalable.
Yes. So we're partnering with our manufacturer. Sorry?
Investors do not like this kind of models.
Okay.
So you better pay attention to how this business is going to scale and how are you going to manage the working capital of this?
Yeah, definitely. So we'll figure that out.
I didn't get this point. I think what.
Oh, hold on. Swapna, go ahead.
What? Yeah, I was just telling them to Shamna's point. I think investors typically don't invest equity for working capital, and that's usually a debt funding. So maybe your business needs more debt than equity is what he's trying to tell you.
And that's really not a good way to build a business, Rohith. You should pay lots of attention to the financials on this one, because this is going to be unscalable if you don't pay attention to that. The funding requirements you're
CapEx model,
hold on, let me finish. The funding requirements that you have here on this slide, if I were to look at this as an funding opportunity, I would study that very carefully in how the working capital flows here. And if I see that the working capital has to be invested ahead of revenue coming in to that extent, I would not invest in this company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, so we're going to switch. Rohith, thank you for your presentation. What you're doing is very interesting. The fact that you're getting customers is great. The main work that you need to do right now is in how you price this, how you sell these, how you negotiate the deals with the pipeline that you have created. And in your pipeline, in closing your pipeline, you have to establish that this is not a working capital nightmare. Otherwise, you're not going to get funding.
Yeah, definitely. So we have put those two models, actually balancing those two. So we'll work on that as well.
Good. Good luck.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. We are going to switch to Vivek Kumar next. We will, by the way, Rohith, we can come back to Q&A later on in the program. So if you have other questions, just line up your questions. We'll come back to that later on in the program. We'll first listen to Vivek's pitch. Go ahead, Vivek.
Thank you, Swapna. Thanks for having me today. So I run a company called Qlicket, and we focus on the U.S. market where we help high turnover workers avoid quitting their jobs or not showing up to work the next day, saving companies millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars in the process by identifying what's affecting these workers, both inside and outside of the workplace in a very scalable way. Next slide, please. So we'll start with a quick executive summary. The problem that we're solving is very straightforward. Talk to anybody in a Fortune 500 that has frontline workers or blue-collar workers in the U.S. For some Fortune 100s, it costs them $1 billion a year to deal with these high turnover employees. These are typically package handlers, warehouse workers. It also constitutes fast food employees, retail, etc. Next slide, please. The way we solve this problem is primarily software-based. We have these kiosks, think any off-the-shelf tablet that's mounted in a high-traffic area in a warehouse or a centralized environment. And we have software that workers interact with to say what's affecting them in the workplace. And what's interesting, why this is so effective, is that often the assumption is that low-income workers are not showing up the next day because they're not getting paid well. But the reality is, and you're more than welcome to Google this, we're the top results in the world on this, that even low-income workers want to be treated with dignity and respect. They want to have good working conditions. They want to have good managers. And so many of the reasons these workers end up quitting are avoidable. What we do is we provide the insights and the analytics to organizations to help them reduce this avoidable turnover. Next slide, please. And the results,
Vivek, I'll just give you one piece of feedback on this slide. This slide says nothing, right? You have an unreadable piece of graphic here. Is basically wasting slideware space, right? You need to put some bullet points of what you're trying to say here if you want to use this as a slide. Otherwise, don't bother using the slide.
Good point. Thank you. And in terms of the results, so we launched this in April of 2018. We're growing at 46% month on month for the last 6 months, or about 9% a week. It's comprised of 6 paying customers now. And it includes a Fortune 500, an enterprise, a mid-market, 2 SMBs, and a nonprofit. The enterprises are the more recent customers that have come on board. Pipeline is looking good in terms of crossing about 10K by March end. And the composition both is of expansion revenue from the larger enterprises as well as getting new customers on board. We have 2 basic business models. We charge mid-market or mid-sized customers $3 to $5 per worker per month, and enterprises about $2,000 per month per facility. In terms of a deep dive on this, if we sort of look at the existing situation, this is more replacing substitutes than anything else. It's very much a land grab. The current way of doing this has been periodic meetings, the typical annual survey or questionnaires, or even, here's a suggestion box, which very rarely gets utilized. So it's a great opportunity to kind of be first mover. Sometimes people often confuse what we're doing with so many of the other solutions that exist in HR SaaS, they are very different kinds of plays. So, you're probably very familiar with talent acquisition white collar. We have AI to find you the perfect worker. You're probably familiar with talent retention in the white collar space, some very recognizable names. There's even a big play now in the blue collar talent acquisition space. A few players, Wanalo in the Bay Area, Sequoia Back, Shift Gig in Chicago. We are definitely kind of the first to market that we're public aware of for sort of talent retention, blue collar. The closest thing is Happy or Not. It sort of does these kiosk-based things you might have seen in airports and restrooms, but more from kind of the customer perspective than sort of on employee retention. Okay. Next slide, please. In terms of credibility, so our first 3 customers, our 6 total customers, half of them came through referrals. The other half were pure, just hustle, sending cold emails, account-based marketing, credibility through top ranking on Google through content. Obviously, the next thing we're going to be thinking about is scaling paid acquisition channels from 10 to 100, exploring Google AdWords, looking to do more with content, mixing in some trade shows, doing more account-based marketing. But we've been able to sort of get these customers quite quickly, which has been very exciting and obviously delighting them.
Okay.
Here's a screenshot of how it works. So, a simple cloud-based dashboard where you can manage hundreds of kiosks. You can put announcements, polls, games, schedule questions. There's a question bank, tagging. You can see results by kiosk. Super easy to manage this entire system, and it's just a preview of sort of how it looks like. Next slide, please. This is from the user's perspective, so the actual worker in the warehouse. The first screen might just be a simple smiley face, something to get their attention to react to. The second question is sort of a more qualitative type response about whatever that factor is correlating with why they maybe chose a certain smiley face. What's exciting about this compared to other mediums, say traditional mobile or even a desktop email type system, is that we get very high engagement. If you assume about 100 workers in a warehouse, within 7 to 10 days of going live, we'll see 100% response rate. So about 100 responses. It's semi-anonymous, so it's not entirely all uniques, but it's much higher than most other mediums for engagement, and that trend continues even beyond kind of the initial days. Obviously, it does dip a bit, but what we do end up seeing is higher responses on the extremes of people who are dissatisfied on maybe what's affecting them. So retention has continued to remain high, even with sort of quarterly-based contracts that we have with our first couple customers. Yeah. Next slide, please. How we typically do this, because people often try to understand what kind of data we gather and what's different about this from a traditional survey. So most survey tools that you might think of, SurveyMonkey, et cetera, they give you an easy way to sort of set up your survey, but they don't actually provide you with the solutions and do the analysis. That's where Qlicket adds a lot of its value, especially on the enterprise side. So for example, if we ask workers what's affecting them, how they're feeling, what's affecting them, we might categorize it by, is it health? Is it childcare? Is it transportation? And they may say it's health that week. And then we'll deep dive on that, and we'll say, well, what is it specifically about health? And a follow-up question about a week later, is it early start time, heavy lifting, standing on your feet all day, working overtime? They may say standing on my feet all day. Now, someone traditionally who's in HR may say they signed up for a warehouse job. They're complaining about standing on their feet all day. There's not a whole lot we can do about that. The way we look at that at Qlicket is we say, well, why don't we suggest padded shoe insoles or foot pads or a massage shirt in the break room or a lunch and learn yoga or an Uber ride to work or a bus pass. Simple things that, in the white-collar workforce, we might get an ergonomic chair if we had a back problem. And so that's the kind of thinking we bring. And this has actually happened where in an environment, workers said they were tired of standing all day, and the company actually got them padded shoe insoles. Those Dr. Schul padded shoe insoles cost them less than $10 to buy them for each worker, and it reduced turnover in their environment. In fact, for one of our customers, retention went up from 8% to 25%. So what we're trying to do is bring the same level of care that's already prevalent in so many offices to these traditionally high turnover environments such as warehouses.
Very good. Okay.
The team, there's 3 co-founders, Dipendra, John, and myself. I do marketing and sort of fundraising. John does sales, all things customers, and a little bit of product growth. And Dipendra does engineering and product development. And then we have some other folks as well, but a little bit look at our backgrounds. Next slide, please.
Vivek, I would give you one piece of feedback on this slide. Don't call yourself hustler, hipster, and hacker. Use traditional job titles of whatever, whether you're the CEO, John is the head of sales, and Dipendra is the head of engineering, because this kind of is very flippant, and you're not doing flippant stuff. You're doing enterprise selling, and this kind of flippant stuff is a turnoff, I think.
It's a great point. Yep, thank you for that feedback. That change. In terms of milestones and where we're at, so we're already thinking about our seed round and sort of what we need as a minimum. Obviously, seed rounds down the valley go from 25 to 100K MRR. Sort of want to be on the higher end of that. But as a baseline, we're already on the path for unaffiliated customers, revenue growth. We talked about crossing 10K by March, very much on path by year end to sort of get above 25K. We already have one case study proving actual turnover reduction through this system, sort of utilizing the Hawthorne effect. And in terms of what we're working on next, we talked a little bit about that, going from 10 to 100 customers, CAC LTVs, in check 3x at least on that equation, payback periods well under a year. So these are the things we're thinking about as next steps. Next slide, please. And where we are with our financing, so we've obviously been around for a few years, and that's clear from our LinkedIn profiles and whatnot. You see, we've already closed $775,000 to date. For what we're doing already, or currently, we're running very lean, and we're looking for our last 100K. We're going to count this as a total 1 million pre-seed, and this will help us get to about a 2 million seed round. And you can see some of our statistics on the right. Obviously, we have some legacy revenue, but the main business is very much what we just talked about in this presentation, growing very quickly, 46% month on month, 6 paying customers, 100% retention, signed a Fortune 500 in a month, and our burn is very, very low. We have a strategic advantage with engineering and support based in India and enterprise customers from the U.S. So this is a business that can quickly turn profitable if need be, but we're very much wanting to focus on growth and scaling. Next slide, please.
So Vivek, again, there is some terminology problem here. You're not raising a $1 million pre-seed. This is not a pre-seed round.
It should be about 250, right?
It's a post-seed round, if anything. You've already, so this 775,250 is already in the bank, right?
It is, but it's been spent over time. So this fresh capital is sort of around 250 we're looking to do right now, pretty small.
So the 775 has come into your company over time, and you've already spent some of that.
Correct.
Okay, so this is what is the cap table? These are on the same term sheet. All this 1 million is on the same term sheet.
So all of them are currently notes, varying caps. Some semi-institutional investors, angels. It's been sort of syndicated. It's, we had to take a call about a year ago whether to just start a new company or kind of keep the current cap table in place with the IP, the team, the vesting, all of that. We decided to keep everything in place. But, we see ourselves total million raise, getting to about $1 million in ARR, and then going for about a 2 million seed round.
Okay, so don't call this a pre-seed. That is going to confuse everybody because there are pre-seed investors who are looking at real pre-seed deals, and you present them with this, they're going to, that's not the investor base that you need to go out to. This is still very much a seed kind of deal. It's and your 2 million round is not a seed round. That is most likely looking like a Series A. So if you're looking to raise another $1 million in seed, that is an equity round. Anyway, there's a bunch of financing issues here, financing cap table issues that are off that need to be fixed. Swapna, I'll let you comment on what you've seen so far.
Yeah, I think I had a more business-specific question. I was just trying to wonder, there is a good day at work and a bad day at work. How do you take care of those sort of seasonalities when you're building a business like that? I mean, periodic reviews are for a reason, that it's all encompassing of 3, 6 months, whatever you're feeling. But if you're doing it on a regular basis, I mean, one day could be bad and one day could be good. And the signaling to noise ratio, I don't know, how do you take care of that?
Very good question.
Yeah, no, and that's definitely a valid point. We obviously have this running consistently in these environments, so people could have a specific day they can write in comments. What we try to do is tease out general trends about what would have the greatest impact. So if there's a manager or team leader that's affecting people, if we talk about with health, if it's transportation, so we try to do the lowest hanging fruit or the biggest wins first. Obviously, if it's down to an individual having an issue, they can sort of write that in and it could be escalated, but we're sort of looking more at the aggregate right now and sort of seeing what's affecting a larger percentage of the workforce.
All right. Well, again, we can come back to more Q&A on Qlicket. How do you pronounce this, by the way?
Qlicket.
Qlicket. Okay. Well, Qlicket. We'll come back to Qlicket in a bit. Thank you, Vivek, for your presentation. We are going to listen to the next presentation by Benigna Ajuogo.
Benigna.
Benigna. Oh, Benigna. And how do you pronounce your last name?
He got it right. Ajog.
Ajogo. Okay. All right. Benigna, go ahead and do your presentation.
Yes. So my presentation, my project is kind of different. Mine is consumable and inspirational. My name is Benigna Ajok. I'm originally from Nigeria, and I live here in United States. I went to school here in United States and been working here. And I wrote a book to tell my story, raising myself from childhood, working and selling things to go attend primary school, secondary school, and bringing myself to United States and pursuing my degree, working 3-4 jobs, and eventually got my degree in aerospace engineering and also a pilot license. And I thought I should write my story to inspire the young generation. And that I have done is not published yet. And I just got into a perfume brand, trying to create my perfume and tell my story through the perfume. And I'm partnering with perfume houses to design, formulate, and manufacture this perfume. And the responsibility is on me to promote and market the brand and make profit from there. I've been working on this for past 4 months. At the beginning, I wanted to go through the route of private equity and capital, looking for ventures capital, but it was hard. So I think I should generate sales through pre-sales and go from there. So back to the brand. Because of my story, telling my story through the perfume, I thought I should launch or release the first fragrance that is targeted at youth. And the name of the line is called Charged Up. And the age for the perfume line is between 13 and 19 years old, and is unisex. So the perfume house that I'm working with. Okay, so the competitive advantage that I have for my brand is depending on my story, and also our message is more of
Did Benigna drop off? Benigna, I think your line dropped off. I'll give you some feedback based on what I've heard so far, and you can pick it up in the recording. I don't buy
Hello?
that.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Your line dropped off. Your line dropped off. I started to give you some feedback. You're going to need to pick up some of that feedback from recording, but I'll give you that feedback right now. I think you have no expertise in perfumes. You're an aerospace engineer or pilot, whatever, and that doesn't qualify you to launch this perfume brand. And I think it shows in the presentation that you're doing is you really don't know what you're doing. And it's very, very difficult to build a business in something that you have no idea what's going on and how to build this business. So my recommendation, just based on what I've heard so far, is for you to not do this, because I don't think you're going to be successful in launching a perfume brand, because what you're saying here is completely unconvincing when it comes to building a perfume company.
Well, it's not this is a brand. A lot of perfume brands are owned by people of different professions and different fields that they do not have anything to do with the perfume, creating the perfume. And
those are usually celebrities who use their brands to put their names on perfumes, like an Elizabeth Taylor or a Gwyneth Paltrow can put their names on a perfume and call it a perfume, and that would be fine. They can outsource the actual perfume development, but the perfume is sold on the basis of the celebrity brand, not some no-name brand. So if you're trying to do that with a no-name brand, you have nothing, right? You're not bringing anything. You're not bringing any particular perfume expertise. You're not bringing any brands to the table. So what does this company get built on?
It's built on. That's why I started telling. Hello?
Yes, I'm listening. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yes, that's why I started by talking about my book, my story, and the perfume industry is pretty much wrapped around message. The inspiration message behind the perfume or the brand is how the perfume is going to be successful or famous or something. For example, Chanel.
That is correct.
Number 5.
That is correct, but it takes an enormous amount of money to tell one of these stories. If you look at a Christian Dior or a Jean Patou or Chanel or whatever perfume, that story that gets told with a huge amount of marketing budget. I don't think you will be able to afford any of that. So my first impression, listening to what I've listened to, is to discourage you from going down this path. I don't buy this business plan, and I don't think you're going to be successful. Okay? I'm sorry to give you a discouraging message, but I don't buy what you're saying is going to work.
Well, it doesn't depend on the presentation of the business. It depends on the product and the marketing. And I've gone far, and I think I'm going to make it. It's going to be successful.
I hope you do. I wish you all the best. I hope you prove me wrong and become very successful. My job is to give you feedback based on what I've seen, and I just did that. So you can take it or leave it.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
So,
folks, if you like what we're doing here, and I do mean that the feedback you will get here is unadulterated, undiluted feedback on exactly what I see. And you have to have stomach for that kind of feedback and not get bent out of shape. So you can't get upset about honest feedback. My job is to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. So if you like that, culture, that ethos of the program, then please refer other serious entrepreneurs into 1M1M, and we would be delighted to work with you on specific issues that, I think the issues Rohith is dealing with are very specific issues. Obviously, there is traction, there is a product, the product is selling. Now we need to figure out how to scale that company and how to design that company for scalability. And those are very specific, serious issues. We can work with those, we can impact those, and so on and so forth. So that's the kind of work we do. We work with very specific, actionable issues, strategic issues, and so forth. And that's the resources, all the resources start at 1mby1m.com. So you have to start your journey exploration at 1mby1m.com. There's a blog that is active and extensive, so you can use the blog. The Entrepreneur Journeys book series has 12 volumes. You can learn from those and double-click on specific topics. These roundtables happen every week. This is the 432nd roundtable. Over 100,000 people have attended. Our full acceleration program is 1M1M Premium. There you get extensive methodology guidance, a full curriculum. You get help with business development. You get this kind of roundtable strategy consulting. And we also help you with financing. And we have a lot of clout in the media, so we give you access to our media cloud so you can get your message out there. That is a $1,000 annual membership fee program. There is no concept of graduation, by the way, from 1 million by 1 million. You can use the program for as long as you want to. You can use it for years. We've had companies in the program for 3-4 years at times. There is a 1M1M self-assessment on the website. It's a set of questions to evaluate how you're going to build your business. So this is something, this is basically a strategic planning questionnaire. I recommend that all of you take your businesses through these strategic planning process and try to answer these questions. They are the questions investors would ask you, so it's better that you ask these questions of yourself. 1M1M Basic is our curriculum-only option that may help you answer questions that you may have based on the self-assessment. You may run into methodology gaps. You may not understand what you're hearing, and or what the questions I'm asking, those questions you can learn to answer through using the 1M1M curriculum. So anyway, dig around on the website. There's lots of information. You can decide for yourself whether this is a program for you or not. It is a self-learning program assisted by the roundtables where you get project-based coaching, but we do require that you study quite a lot to learn from case studies. We have over 1,000 successful entrepreneurs have told their stories, and we've captured their case studies, their journeys, block by block, and that's something that you're going to, be able to use to design your strategy. You can use somebody else's strategy as your blueprint, and it works very well in that mode. So we give you the program online in case studies and video lectures. Our methodology is bootstrap startups, lean capital efficient bootstrap startups. We're not doing electric vehicles. This is IT and IT-enabled services only. So electric vehicles take a lot of money up front. We don't do those kinds of ventures. So our companies tend to be more like what Rohith is doing or Vivek is doing, is bootstrap small capital efficient companies that will then raise money eventually perhaps or not, but you need to definitely be able to, in a very capital efficient way, prove your thesis, get to product market fit, and so forth. That's the methodology that we use. So that's it. We have free roundtables pretty much every week, one more in February and then 4 in March. We also have these in-person gatherings, the rendezvous at Cafe Boroni in Menlo Park. So if you're either in the Bay Area or visiting the Bay Area, you're very welcome to come by to meet me in person and talk about your businesses. February 27th is the next one, and then March 6th and March 20th. So hope to see you in one of these. And now we are open for Q&A again. I see that Rohith has a question. Let me answer the question. Pricing our monthly model in such a way there is little risk financially. will they be fine? I'm not understanding fund-wise what all things are missed by us to figure out, or is the fund too much of a task ask? Rohith, I don't understand your first question. Pricing your model monthly in such a way there is little risk financially, what does that mean? What is the question? Subscription fee, by the way, monthly subscription is the best pricing model for businesses right now, and that is the most popular business model with investors. So as long as you're doing a B2B business, if you have a subscription-based, monthly subscription-based pricing, that is the desired model. So I think the thing that you could look at is, some sort of a 6 months payment upfront, and then we go to a monthly payment model as your pricing model. But what we are really doing is still doing monthly subscription fee. It's just that there's a commitment that you're asking. Like people can't take your product and then switch you off in 6 months. That's, they have to sign up for at least 6 months. That's something that's built into the pricing, and that's what will address your cash flow problem and the working capital problem. Funding-wise, you need to work on your funding pitch, Rohith. So if you need help with that, you can join the program, and I'll be able to help you further. But there are issues around TAM and stuff that you need to work on. You need to do bottom-up TAM analysis. What you've presented is a top-down TAM analysis. That's not going to be sufficient to be able to convince investors. So folks, let me also introduce you to Irina Patterson. In case you have questions about the 1M program, you can contact Irina by email, irina@1M1M.com, and she'll be also happy to talk to you on Skype or phone. She can answer all questions about the program. Anybody else? So folks, the testimonial that you see on the slide right now is a 1M1M premium company that was just acquired by Qualys. It raised a small amount of money, executed on its vision, and then very quickly got acquired by Qualys. So you may want to look at what we are showing you as an option. There are various different options of becoming successful. One of the options is doing a capital-efficient venture and then seeking early exit, and that's also bootstrapping to exit is also one way that you can build a successful, entrepreneurial story. And this works very well for serial people who have desires to become serial entrepreneurs. You'll do, several companies probably, and there's a lot of learning involved. So if you can do, smaller ventures early and then sell some of that, you'll get some capital and learning and so forth, and you will become a more mature entrepreneur as you go along, and you can do it again and again. Saravanan Shankaran, you're sending me private messages. Can you chat? Of course you can chat, but just set your chat to send to all participants so that everybody can see your questions. Rohith, thank you for the feedback. That's a great way to get a real check. We'll connect on LinkedIn with Shramana for further conversations. You're welcome to do that, Rohith. Remember, if you need further guidance, that you're going to need to be in the program. I can't really give you a lot more guidance unless you're in the premium program. This free roundtable is where I give free guidance, and that's about the only platform we have designed where I can give you guidance if you're not part of the program. You can come to the rendezvous, the in-person rendezvous, where I also give free guidance. Those are the 2 touch points for getting free guidance. Saravanan, what is your question? Please go ahead and ask your question. And anybody else, any other questions, comments? I'm happy to take questions right now. Anybody? Saravanan, I don't see your questions. I'm very happy to answer them, but I haven't seen your question yet. Unless you want to dial in, folks, if anybody wants to dial in, you're welcome to dial in as well. We do have a bit of time right now to do Q&A. Saravanan, you're sending me private messages. That's not the way to do this. You need to ask questions in the public chat. So I'm going to cut and paste your question, which is there any avenue for exporters for scaling up? It depends on what you export and how you export, how you use the online channels and so forth. I mean, this is a very generic question that is very hard for me to answer just like that. So remember one thing, 1 million by 1 million is a program for technology and technology-enabled services, and by that I mean information technology. So as long as you fit in that, if you're exporting, if you're looking for ways to scale your exporting business through technology-enabled channels, we can help you. But if it's just general exporting, that's not really what we do. Anybody else? All right, I don't see any more questions, so I'm going to adjourn the session and we'll see you back here next week. Thank you for coming today, and maybe I'll see some of you at the in-person rendezvous as well. Bye.